Nothing to see here, just feeding the trolls. G'day everybody and welcome back. What we have here is a do-it-yourself big bore kit for a 900 SS. So a couple of days ago I spoke to Twan from Bigler Performance in Holland via video message. And he's talked me through what we've got to do to convert the ST2 cylinders to the 900 engine. I pretty well had it nutted out, but there was a couple of things that I wasn't quite sure about, so it was great to talk to him, because had I not spoken to him, I may have made a couple of mistakes. So we'll run through what we got to do. So, you know, again, a huge shout out to Twan van den Bigler for being just a great bloke. It was his wife's birthday, or the day after his wife's birthday, and he was prepared at 9 o'clock at night to go to the workshop, do a video call with me and talk me through this process. So, you know, it just doesn't get any better than that. Boy, oh boy, I lucked out with these ST2 cylinders, I tell you. You can still see the crosshatches in the bore. Everything measures up perfect. The ring gaps are perfect. You're going to have to trust me on it. I'm not going to go through the whole process again. I'm just wasting time because we need to get on about the modifications. That's what this video is about. Just a bit distracted. Katie Abdillah, the lady that organises the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride here in Hobart, a friend of mine, has just had an accident on her bike. She's in hospital. Just checking in with her. I've only just found out. So, Katie. Rightio, what have we got here? ST2 900 SS. There was a number of you that were a little bit concerned because the ST2 is a water-cooled engine. And at first I was too. When Twan mentioned it, I thought, been on the herbal brownies, have we, Dutchie? But no, he assured me it was all good, and it is. So, what's the differences? Okay, the 900 SS is oil and air cooled. The ST2 is water and air cooled. All right, these are the two vertical cylinders of, this is the ST2, this is the 900 SS. And you can see the difference here in the water. This is part of the water jacket. This is a water jacket on the ST2, and this is an oil jacket. So on the 900 SS, the oil comes up to the cylinder head via this port here. It starts life underneath, so it comes up. The oil goes up into the barrel on its way to the head, but before it gets to the cylinder head, there is actually a bridge in that port. You can't see through to the other side. So essentially the water comes up that port from the bottom, hits a bridge, is diverted into the chamber, and it floods the chamber around the cylinder with oil, and then comes back out of another port into here and off to the cylinder head. I don't have them on me there at home, but if you remember, the dowel, this is a dowel for an ST2. The dowel for the ST2 has a large bore all the way through. The dowel for the 900 SS has a small hole in the top, and that is to provide resistance to flow to let it backfill that chamber before it continues up to the cylinder head. So if you had this bike completely drained of oil, like we have now, it would take an awfully long time to get that oil up to the head. So I'm guessing it's going to be very important when the engine's back together to leave the spark plugs out, crank the bike over and make sure we get oil to the top before we do anything like trying to start the engine. So yes, so that port has a bridge in it. So the oil comes up, deflects, fills the chamber, comes back through another port and up into the cylinder head. That's the 900 SS. On the ST2, you can see all the way through that port. You can see the light coming through. So yes, 900 SS floods the oil chamber, goes up to the cylinder head and returns to the sump through this port here. So there's no pressure per se. The oil's just flowing around that chamber to help cool the engine and goes back down to the crankcase from there. And then it goes through the strainer, through the pump, through the oil cooler, through the filter, and back up into the reticulation system to the crankshaft, and also up to the top here. So with the ST2, it's water. So the water is circulating between this jacket in here and this port. And there's another corresponding jacket on the cylinder head, obviously, and there's also another tube on the cylinder head, and that circulates through the pump and through the radiator, and it all links together as a water cooling system. It is a slightly higher compression on the pistons on the ST2. So we go from, I think it's at 9.25, 9.5 to 1, something like that, to 10.25 or 10.5 to 1. We go up one compression count. So in order to make this work, so we get oil in, we're going to block this port here, which is a water gallery. We're going to block this port here, which is also a water gallery. Then we're going to drill a hole through the outside of the case, which will drill into that water jacket, or what we're going to make an oil jacket. And then we're going to continue to drill into this oil port here. So essentially, see if I can make this work. So the oil will come up through the port from the cylinder head, so it'll come up from this direction here. And we're going, it's got a, this is, just say, this is the casting, the outside of the water jacket, and this is the top of the port here. So all this area here is going to be filled with oil, and the way we do that, we're going to drill a hole through here, then we're going to drill a hole through here. And then we're going to block this hole. So the oil will come up here and it will hit the dowel for the 900 SS, which has a small orifice. That will build resistance. The oil will flow the path of least resistance and flood this chamber. And then once the chamber's flooded, it will continue to feed up to the cylinder head. That's how we make this work. On the current 900 design, it comes up, it deadheads against this bridge in the casting. It goes up here, out, floods the chamber, flows back into another port, and off to the cylinder head that way. So it goes, hits the bridge, diverts, floods the chamber, back in and gone. So what have I got to do this with? I've got a few different things, because I was going to do something different to what Tuan has suggested, but I'm going to follow Tuan's advice. I've got some Welsh plugs. The Welsh plug on the 900 SS at the front here is a 20mm Welsh plug, and I bought another two 20mm Welsh plugs. I figured I would drill that out to 20mm, even though it only looks like it's got a little bit of material there. There is a bit, and I was going to drive this 20mm Welsh plug in there. Then I was going to drill these out to 18mm and put an 18mm Welsh plug in there, because these are all low pressure. It's not like it's under extreme pressure. It's just low pressure. It flows back here under gravity. But what I've decided to do, based on Tuan's advice, is not to drill this hole out to 18mm, but tap it out to M5 and put a grub screw in there. Now I'll put the grub screw in there with Loctite, and then I'll spike it with a centre punch so it can't come undone. Because the last thing we want is this thing coming undone. And I'll drill this out to 18mm and put the Welsh plug in there. So that'll take care of those two. And then I need to drill through the side here. I'm going to drill through tapping size for M5 thread, and same thing, I'm going to use grub screws and Loctite and spike them to prevent the oil leaking outside of the cylinder. So we're going to do that to both of them. This one here, we need to drill through there, and so that one's actually probably a little bit easier. We've got to make sure that we get it in the right spot. The thing I'm actually most concerned about is drilling this out to 18 millimetres. I don't have an 18 millimetre twist drill, and it wouldn't be very good in this situation anyway. I've got a step drill that was mullered on the 14 and 16 millimetre sizes, but it's okay on the 18 and 20. And I've cut the bottom of it off at the 16 millimetre mark, so that I can just use the 18 millimetre step drill to drill into here and fit the Welsh plug. And if that fails and is no good, then I'll use the 20 mil. But first I think I'm going to just drill into here for both of them and find that oil passageway, and deal with it first. I'll leave these open so that I can flush them out and make sure that we don't have any swarf running around in our oil system. All right, what I'm going to try and do here is try and mark the centre of that casting. The square doesn't want to sit square, so I've just popped this rule across the front. You can see here, you can see the oil passageway in the casting there, up through the middle, and then it expands out. So this is a void in here, so we're going to drill through into air, and then we're going to pick up the oil galley and drill through into it. Right, we want to make sure that we're deep enough and we're below that. We're below the where the dowel seats in the bottom of that. So according to the digital caliper, it's around about 9 millimetres. So we just have to make sure that we are well and truly south of that. I'm going to take it down 15 millimetres. Probably take it just to the bottom of that casting mark there, might make it easier to weld on. To drill through, or welding anything. All right, that's the point of no return. Just going very gently. All right, we are now through that first layer. So now we have a through and through hole. Well, it wasn't ruined before, it's ruined now. I have an M5 intermediate tap is all I've got. And a bit of wizard's piss. This hole is already about the right size. And what I was going to use originally was these socket head cap screws with a copper washer for the side ports. I was just going to cut them down as short as I needed them. But Tuan mentioned to me that there's probably a good chance that the belt will hit that, so we'll go flush. Now the only other thing that I've got to do on this one, the ST2 has these small brackets that screw in here, and they're an M6 thread, whereas on the 900SS it's an M10 thread. So I just have to drill those out and tap them for M10. But before we do that, I'll drill and then I want to do the thing that's making me shit myself, which is try and drill that out for a Welsh plug. But before we do that, I will do the M5 threads on this sucker, on the horizontal cylinder. No, this is the vertical cylinder. That was the horizontal cylinder. Sorry. I do apologise. This one's a little trickier. We're going to have to go down through. We're going to have to go down through here about second fin down. I might just have to eyeball this. Right, that's where we need to be. There we go. Off, on, off, on. Safety third. Right, now, so both the vertical and horizontal cylinders have their oil gallery ports drilled, tapped, and also that other one on the top, the one we need to block. So now I'm going to try and drill these out for the Welsh pluggers, and this is the thing I'm most worried about. Because the casting here, I'm hoping I can get it deep enough. There's about 2.5, 3 millimeters worth of material on the other side there, but there's plenty here. And I'm hoping it doesn't want to kick and carry on. I think I'll try and bolt it down as best I can. All right, to the drill press. Hopefully this doesn't shake around too much, this other camera here. I'm just going to set the stop quite low in case it goes nuts. Contact! It should be 18 millimeters. just to explain what I was talking about with the step drill, how I cut it off, that's the bottom half of it. It's been damaged by spinning it into a stainless 3mm thick piece of stainless. Too many revs on my pistol drill up underneath the machine, and I've melted it. But I wanted to cut that off so that it wouldn't go drilling into the bottom of the water gallery there. Well, it's an oil gallery now. Okay, I'm going to give this a good clean out, blow out. Let's remove the offending water spout, because that's going to be an oil, where the oil coupling goes, and the bolt pattern is exactly the same. It has an O-ring behind it, exactly the same. Everything's identical, with the exception of using oil and air cooling instead of water and air cooling. Same O-ring. So that fitting there will bolt onto there. Just going to use a little bit of Loctite primer. It's like a very good contact cleaner on those. And on the Welsh plug, I'm going to use stag jointing compound. Now, there is, like I said, it's no oil pressure on that Welsh plug. You can see how clean this oil galley is. Like I said, these cylinders are perfect. They just need a good clean. They need a good clean. The Nickel coating has oleoscopic properties, which means that its chemical makeup, it prefers oil to water. If it preferred water to oil, it would be oleophobic. Not to be confused with hygroscopic, which is what your brake fluid is, so that absorbs water. It just means that it has a preference for oil over water. Where you would see an oleophobic type of material is like on the front of your smartphone. It tries to prevent, they use it to try and prevent fingerprints. How did we get on that? Oh, anyway, I'm going to put some of the old stag jointing compound on this 18mm Welsh plug, and this is probably just a hangover. We used to use these in the engine places where I've worked for Welsh plugs, just as a bit of added security. Just being very gentle with it because there isn't a lot of material there and I don't want to wreck it. Right, so for the grub screws, I'm just using a bit of Loctite. I hope you can see that okay. I've got the other light still sitting over at the drill. And this is stud lock. I don't want this coming out. And for a bit of extra security, we'll spike it. The Loctite serves two purposes. It retains the screw, but it also seals the screw. Perfection. Spike him in there. Very good. All right, we now have a ST2 cylinder converted ready to go onto a 900 SS. I really would like that plug down in there a little bit better, but I'm a bit nervous about knocking it down in there. You don't want to squash them barrels. I don't put any weight on those. Try and knock it down a little bit more. A bit nervous. That's better. So now, if we put air underneath here, blows up through there. If we put our finger over that, blows out the side. So it'll have the desired effect. Contact. Loctite works in the absence of air. It's an anaerobic product. It works in the absence of air and in contact with steel. If you touch the tip on the bolt, you've just put it in contact with steel, and then you put it in an anaerobic environment and it goes hard in the nib, and you end up throwing it away the next time you want to use it. Always administer Loctite by the drop. But don't listen to me. I'm an idiot. All right, so now this idiot has just prepared 2 ST2 cylinders for use in a 900 SS. No, he hasn't. He's got one more job to do. So what we're doing is obvs, or maybe not obs to everybody, but this is where the fairing bolt, the stays for the side fairings. There's some supports that screw into here. And as I mentioned earlier, on the ST2, it's got some sort of bracketry for a, I don't know, radiator or something. Well, the only thing to do now, I'll just pop these on here temporarily because I've ordered new O-rings. So the cylinder heads are at Gowan lock. My brief to them was strip, clean, inspect, report. So I'm just waiting for them to get back to me with what they feel we need to do to the cylinder heads. And I've got a laundry list of parts that I also asked them to price up for me. So that included cam belts, all new O-rings for the top of the cylinders, the bottom of the cylinders, the base gaskets, these O-rings that are on the back of these oil fitting or banjo fitting adapters, as well as the copper washers for the banjo fittings, everything that we will need, new timing belts, everything that we'll need to put this back together. So I'll just put them on there so we don't lose them. So, oh, there we go. We now have, it wasn't so scary, was it? We now have two perfect ST2 944cc higher compression cylinders and pistons for the Ducati 900 Supersport. Now, on the subject of ST2s, I have had a bit of a scratch about looking for some camshafts, and everyone you talk to goes, nah, cobber. They go straight into race bikes, and that seems to be what's happening. The heads on the 900 SS are a V2 designation, which means that I think that's got slightly larger valves than other versions, but the camshafts are OHT and VHT. O is the horizontal cylinder and V is the vertical cylinder. The ones we want, if you're kicking around a swap meet somewhere and you come across a set, the ones you want are OHZ and VHZ. They're the ST2 camshafts. Have a very different profile, more aggressive. But look, I don't care. I'm happy, happy chappy. So yes, I'm just waiting to hear back from Lock what's happening with the cylinder heads. These are now ready to go, with the exception of a good thorough clean and refit. These have all been refurbished, refit the cam adjusting pulleys, etc. And we're good to go. We now have converted water into oil. Wasn't that hard, I don't think. Okay, again, big shout out to Twan Vandenbigler, big shout out to Lock Ducati, big shout out to everybody that's taking an interest in this project and all the positive comments. We did get a lot of thumbs down on the Italian joke at the, which is 100 years old, that joke. God, get over it. And also the fact that we dare criticise the might of Ducati, that they might actually not have got it right on all occasions. Now, it's probably a valid argument to say it's quite possible that the bikes that are suffering have not been maintained that well, or been running the wrong type of lubricants or whatever, too long a service interval, who knows. All I know is that the 900 SS cylinders that we're looking at off my bike came off an engine that has now done 22,000 kilometres. Since I've owned it, which was at 12,000 kilometres, so I've put 10k on it. That 10k, I've probably over-serviced it. I've always used Motol, fully synthetic oils, and looked after it really well. I can't say what happened before that, but to get a 3mm gap on the oil ring and the oil ring only, and then turn around and think it wasn't a material fault, kidding yourself. Anyway, that's enough waffle. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment, and I will catch you next time on Andy's Motorcycle Obsessions. Bye for now.